Welcome, everyone, to episode 325 of Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. I'm David Reed, and I appreciate you joining me this weekend. Brenda James, Dr. Kate Heitmeyer from Stargate, Dr. Kate Heitmeyer, Dr. Katie Brown. Brenda, I'm so sorry. I can't believe I just did that.
I don't know.
Oh,
It's Dr.
gosh.
Katie Brown.
I had Kate on last week.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's fabulous.
She's still rattling around in my head. There's two Kates in Atlantis. That's pretty rare. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm in California. The sky is blue. It's a beautiful day. I got my dog by my feet. Like, things are good.
What kind of a dog do you have?
I have a golden retriever. And she's really sweet. Her name's Winnie. She's 5 years old.
Winnie.
And she's just like the sweetest thing in the world. So,
I love Goldens. They're just happy. They love life. You know, they're terrific. Just so that everyone knows in the audience, this is a live stream, so that if you have questions for Dr. Katie Brown, actress Brenda James, go ahead and submit them to the mods. They're rattling around in there right now, just looking for your questions, and then they're going to get them over to me. Katie, when did you know that you wanted to act? When did you know that this was going to be your passion? I love asking this question.
Yeah, well, it's a great question because we all come to it in different ways. So I'm originally from Canada and I moved to Los Angeles when I was 12. And it's kind of interesting because it reminds me a little bit of Dr. Katie Brown. I felt like I was in my own bubble here. I felt kind of I don't know, I kind of had my own rhythm, my own path. And
in Canada or in LA?
In LA. I didn't feel like I fit in LA. So I had moved from Canada when I was 12. And I was trying to find something that I loved to do. And so I auditioned. I started auditioning. I got an agent right away. I started doing commercials and television when I was about 14 years old. And I loved it because it got me out of school. That's why I did. I became an actress so I could get out of going to school. It's true. I could not sit in algebra. I could not sit. I couldn't. I just couldn't sit still. And acting was a great way for me to get out of school, meet different people, lots of fabulous people. And I also really like taking on different roles. I learned about people that way. You go to different universes, right? You get to explore different places. You travel. So more than just
in the
the
mind.
acting part.
Yeah.
You travel in the mind, but you also travel as a person. You know, I'd get a role and all of a sudden I'd be in Mississippi, or I'd get a role and I'd be traveling to Vancouver, or I'd get a role in Arkansas. I mean, the places that the business took me to aren't places that I absolutely would have maybe chosen to go to. So I met a lot of fabulous people. So that's kind of a roundabout way of how I became an actor, but it wasn't necessarily for the craft. It was maybe for the lifestyle and the experiences and getting out of school, honestly.
What made you stick with it for so many years? Was it the same thing, or did those perspectives on the things that you loved about it evolve and change? I'm really curious.
It definitely evolved and
Yeah.
changed. At first, I did it because it was fun. It got me, out and about.
Yeah.
But once I got to know the people involved, the creative people involved, I loved the community.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just something about the industry. The people there's just different.
Mm-hmm.
They're just different. They're caring, but they're creative. They're thinking. They want to connect. I just felt like I was home. If I'm on a set, I feel like I'm at home, or on a stage, I feel like I'm home.
It's a group of explorers in a lot of ways. You're surrounded by people who are reaching for something, and sometimes they get it, and sometimes they don't. Just like a role. It's like, well, where is this going to take me, And is it going to be what I thought it was once I get to the other side? And what am I going to learn from this? And who am I going to connect with? There's a lot of positives to that world, but at the flip side of it, you're never sure about tomorrow. And like
True.
I'm like I've always considered myself like right in the middle in terms of like having a creative side that I've called like a creative drip that I can't shut off, that I always just I have to be near that faucet because I have to be able to dial it around as need be. But also at the same time, there's this spreadsheet side of me that's like, you have to plan for your future. You can't do anything too outrageous Did you ever find yourself out on a limb where it's like, I'm going to take a chance with this, or I'm going to go out for this, or where you didn't know about tomorrow, but you were like, I have a gut feeling about this one. Was there anything
Well,
that
it's
ever, yeah,
interesting is I think that's how I've lived my life.
okay.
So I I was really lucky. I was really fortunate. So at a
Yeah.
young age, I was able to support myself through commercials. 80s and 90s commercials were they paid very well, and I did a ton of commercials. You name it, from every toothpaste to car to um, Hallmark cards to I did every kind of commercial I could get into, and it was fabulous. It helped support me. So I
Hmm.
still worked in a restaurant because I wanted to be around people,
Right.
but I was able to support myself. I moved out at 17. I moved to Hollywood. I had a roommate. I was doing a television series. I just continually worked and evolved. And once I started, I was doing a biker movie in Mississippi.
Okay.
And I was working with an actor, but I started talking about acting like I knew what I was talking about. And I'd been acting years at that point, but I don't think I actually knew how, like the technique or how to grow. I was just growing as a person.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he just kind of he said, "You know what? You need to go to acting class. You need to learn how to do this." And I'm like, "This do I? Like this is do I?" And
Am I
he's
not
like, "Oh
doing it
yeah,
right now with
you
you?
need to become a member of the actor studio, and you need to take, you need to learn how to be a method actor, and you need to do these sorts of things." And you know what I did? As soon as I got back from the biker movie, I signed myself up for acting class, and I got really, really involved, and I loved it.
So he
I
was
loved it.
right.
He was right, and I became a member of the actor studio, and I am currently one of the guest instructors at the Lee Strasberg Institute in Los Angeles.
How cool is that? How long have
Yeah,
you been
so
teaching?
I just started. I just started. I'm a guest instructor. I literally moved back to Los Angeles just 2 years ago, and I started working again. I had gone away to raise my kids, so
Yeah.
I left Vancouver.
Yeah.
I moved down to San Diego,
Oh, great
talking
city.
about the sure thing,
Yeah.
right? I had to raise my two kids.
Yeah.
Is this happened right? I think if you asked what happened to Katie Brown, it might just be that I simply had to move because I moved to San Diego, and that's where I raised my kids. And and I did that for quite a long time. And during COVID, my son, who oh gosh, he was like 13, 14, he was a movie fan. He was a television fan and a horror movie fan.
Oh.
And all of a sudden, my 13-year-old is going, Mom, what's that movie Slither? I You're
Oh.
in that. Wait, Mom,
Yeah.
Stargate. Wait, you're in that. Mom, Masters of Horror. Mom. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't really tell you about that stuff.
He's connecting
So
with your material. Wow.
he's he started connecting and he was having trouble in school.
Yeah.
He was having a really hard time in school, something I can relate to.
Yeah.
So during COVID, we struggled and he struggled. And then we decided when he was, I think, so what, he's 17 now, so 15, I said, you know what, let's move back to LA. Let's just go. That's where I took a chance. That's another point in my life where I said, you know what, everything's good here.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. We can get through, but I miss LA. You need to be around creative people. Why not? I'll get back into it. I'm in my 50s, but there's roles for women in their 50s.
Yeah. This
So,
isn't the 90s anymore.
yeah. And so my son's like, "Yeah, Mom, let's do it." So my son's here and he's starting to work on crews, which is great. So he's involved in some fabulous low budget horror movies.
There you go.
And he's 17 and so he's been on sets and learning.
You got to start
And
somewhere. You got to start somewhere. Now it's a
yeah,
family business.
it's a family business, and I'm
Wow.
teaching, and I'm back at the actor studio, and I got a fun part in it's a bloody movie. Um, it's like a true crime thriller.
Okay.
Um,
This
so
isn't
I'm starting
Dorothea,
to
is
work
it?
again. Dorothea, yeah.
Okay. Dorothy Miller. Okay. Are
Yeah,
you
I play
the titular character?
no, I'm one of the characters that gets murdered and gets killed.
Ah,
Yes.
well,
Dorothea is played by Susan Prever and she's fabulous.
yeah.
And it's my first role back, so I was so happy to play one of the victims. Yes, okay. This is a good start. It's a good place for me to be right
Gotta
now.
begin somewhere. Wow. So this is awfully serendipitous that we meet here. Isn't that interesting? That was not intentional. But wow.
Yeah.
So you've been teaching for a matter of weeks, a matter of days, a matter of months?
I started getting on the roster probably about 3 months ago. Yeah.
Are you They're so sick of me saying this phrase, so I'm gonna skip the phrase. Have you found the joy in it yet?
Now, and teaching?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Isn't it
I
wonderful?
I didn't think that I would like it,
Oh,
honestly.
neither
But
did
once I
I.
started, yeah, over, yeah. But it's actually to me almost more creative at this point in my life. Because each student, I mean, they're not kids. These aren't kids. Each student or actor that I'm talking to has a different need or want, or they're in a different place in their life. So you can't teach everybody the same way.
Correct. Except that they're all there with a certain determination to make it work. They each have their own little switches that you have to find and acknowledge and customize. There is I haven't done it in a creative capacity before. I've done it in a private sector business really capacity, and it's
Yeah.
I miss it. I miss it a lot. And there is something about molding people and helping to shape them in pursuing something that they want. And when their eyes light up, when they get it, when you're trying to transmit something and they finally receive it, it's like boom! It's like a bomb
Yeah.
goes off in their head, and then they go and explore it, and it's like I helped fulfill that. I helped discover that. And I follow a number of mine today, and it's like, man, I remember when you were still figuring it out, and you've got it now. There's something so rewarding about it that keeps unfolding into the future, you know. And it's
Yeah.
just
Well,
I
that's
don't
what
think that I don't think that we recognize that enough in one another. The desire to pass on knowledge, whatever
right.
the job may be.
Yeah, and I think that's what's missing in LA. Honestly, I came back and I was really surprised. I felt like my generation of actors, the teachers are, 65, 70, or then there's a lot of like 20, 30-year-olds looking for teachers.
Yeah, there's a
And I
hole.
really I don't know what happened. I feel like my generation just dropped off the face of the earth in LA. And I think I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to age
Hmm.
in LA. It's difficult, to survive sometimes. So maybe people just moved out or left the industry. But I feel like there isn't, it's like, I almost feel like some of the techniques it's going to be gone.
Yeah.
The technique is going to be gone if we don't pass it down. So
Yep.
I really feel like there's a void here. So I feel like I have something I can bring to it.
That's
Not
right.
only the technique work, but there's also the being on set. How to get work, how to handle yourself on set, dealing with a role, dealing with a character, beyond being on a stage or in front of a camera, being a human being,
Hmm.
right? And I think I'll use the mom card, but I think having raised two kids too, I think this generation, I think they're missing some kind of a connection, very different than when I was their age. Like
Yeah.
we were just having a blast. Like
Yeah.
in the eight, I had a great time. So I would go study and I'd be working on these pieces that would open me up, but they were actually quite depressing or
Hmm.
going through, processing things. And now I almost feel like the kids almost need to do the opposite.
Hmm.
Their lives are so stressful and complicated that I almost want them to use the technique in a way to help them find joy in the work again, play, have fun as an actor, create characters. Who are these people? It's yes, use yourself, but you also have to find hope and you have to find happiness and you have to find ease. And I think the same techniques I used can be used today to create that. So I'm hoping I can bring that to the Strasberg Institute.
Wow.
That's what I'm trying to do right now. I'm just being, spotted into classes. But I'm hoping to develop my own classes as well there. So we'll see what
Well,
happens.
bravo. This is fantastic.
Mhm.
And I wish you nothing but the best because I think you are in the beginning stages of what I suspect will be a marvelous chapter. So that's really cool.
Yeah, no,
And
I'm excited.
yeah, and these kids, they share information like none of our generations ever did. But I don't know if they're necessarily communicating. They may consider themselves communicating quite a bit, but they're doing it completely on their own terms. They're not out there in the middle of it and having things thrown at them and go, whoa, how do I
Well, they
deal
move
with
so
this? They
quickly.
move so
Everything's
quickly. There's no time for
fast.
conflict resolution. It's just avoid, avoid, avoid. And these are
Oh,
things that you can access with them when you're forcing them to stare in each other's faces and recite dialogue or discover a means of expression that they haven't even considered because this character has issues that they don't have. It really forces you to leave your own shoes at the door and go find a pair that you've never walked in before.
yeah, yeah. Observe other people, watch other people, see what other people are going through. How do
Right.
you find empathy if you're not paying attention?
You can't.
You know, can't. And it's important. We need it so badly right now.
Yeah.
Just to sit and process what they're going through and what their characters are going through, but also what are they going through right now? Just to sit and resonate with themselves and then take that into words and be able to create and then to speak to another actor and communicate and bring in a scene and get out of their heads
Hmm.
or their self-awareness is so based on how they look. I'm really surprised. I feel like we've gone backwards. It's
In some
bizarre
ways,
to me. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
bizarre.
forward progress is not a guarantee. Like you were saying about ideas, in teaching, you can lose them. They have to be rediscovered again later, often, and we don't even think about that. So, like that gap that you were talking about in terms of the ages, there's missing generation. There's missing information rather that will cost us.
There is, and I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. It's
No,
there. I mean, brilliant people have discovered things. I don't know why. Sometimes I think these kids, they feel like they're on their own because they don't have, we're not sharing with them
yeah.
somehow.
They think that they're facing challenges that they never have before, and I think a lot of them think that the world is going to end, and that we've left them a dying husk, and I think that that's largely the fault of us letting them think that, and we have to remind them of joy, and we have to remind them
Yes.
of purpose, because if we don't give it to them,
Yes.
someone else will.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
speaking of walking in shoes, tell us about Katie Brown's green toed shoes, as it were.
Ah,
Who was this gal?
what I loved about Katie Brown in this particular show, which I auditioned for a few times,
Oh,
and I was auditioning for scientists, very brainy, um, a lot of dialogue with a lot of technical terms. And I always got close, but I never got the part.
in SG1 as well as Atlantis?
No, just Atlantis,
Just
I believe.
Atlantis.
Maybe SG1. I might have auditioned for SG1 once, and then
Okay.
I think I'd auditioned twice before I got Katie
Katie.
Brown. I can't remember. It's been a while exactly what the roles were. At one time, I probably would have even still had the scripts. But what I loved about Katie Brown is I think that the difference between her and maybe how I saw the other roles is that Katie Brown to me she was pure heart.
Yeah.
So and I know there's a lot of characters with heart, and that's one thing revisiting the shows. I don't know if I understood that so much then, but now when I watch them back, I see how in a similar way to our conversation, these characters are trying to connect, try to find connections. And Katie, I think, lived in her bubble, in her greenhouse with her plants and nurturing them and growing them, but was almost isolated from what was really going on the outside and with the other characters. I found it odd that during the funeral of
Carson.
Beckett,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I would find it odd that Katie Brown wasn't there.
You weren't in that scene.
I wasn't in that
Oh my
scene.
gosh. What a
Yeah.
what a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
I'm
and
getting
so it really
shivers. I thought she was there.
no, because I would have because I remember something when we were shooting it, and then I'm wondering, well, what I just wasn't called. Was I not available, perhaps? But I think and then I see how they shot it, and I'm like, no, it wasn't about Katie Brown, which is fine, but it was about Rodney.
Yeah.
A lot of it was about Rodney. So to me, it seemed like it was,
Missed opportunity.
she was in her own bubble.
Yeah.
She
Well,
wasn't part.
it could address something about the character, as well. If she's everyone who was in that episode should have at least been in that scene. Come on.
Perhaps. But on the other hand, it also made more sense to me as to why Katie, I see her as an introvert. I see her as someone nurturing, but somehow, what was wrong with her? Like, why wasn't she
Yeah.
in the mix, right? I mean, we
Yeah.
can go to scheduling or the writers, cast members budget. We can maybe come up with reasons, but I'd like to think that perhaps that Katie um, was kind of a social misfit in the sense that it was really difficult for her.
Well,
Maybe she,
maybe she's uncomfortable with death. I mean, if we're gonna look at
yeah,
what's on the screen as being the thing, there's all kinds of explanations for that. And yeah, social misfit. I mean, it would certainly explain, why she was drawn to Rodney, who was also he had this box, and if you were in the box, you were good, and if you weren't, you were like,
yeah.
what's their name? I don't even know. I don't even care.
Yeah. But it's interesting to me because I was thinking about it. She's a botanist, right? The plant loving plants, nurturing. There's I think a somewhat of a sensuality with her
Oh
with
yeah.
Rodney, right? But but that's it. Like it didn't go beyond that. It wasn't like, hey, let's go meet at the mess hall and hang out with everybody, or it's kind of like Katie was like, no,
Hmm.
I'm comfortable here. I like my plants.
Huh.
You come here and visit me. You know, I think it's ironic that the dining room scene, I'm serving him salad. Here, eat my babies. Here, yes. That
Oh,
was
that's
really
funny. I mean, they would not everything has to come from Earth. I mean, God knows what she was managing. I don't want to miss it. I think it's in quarantine if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it was a cactus or what. The
Oh, the
long.
Rodney cactus. The Rodney cactus, yeah.
Oh
Hmm.
my God! Please
And
tell
that
me
was in the
about this
writing. I mean,
scene.
that was obviously in the writing. It was very clear when you walked to set and that's sitting in the middle of the set. You go, okay, this is what you're dealing with. It's pretty
Keeps
obvious.
growing and growing. How should you keep a straight face? How do you do that?
We did every time. I'm sure we didn't every take. It was fun. That was fun. That's the other thing too. It was really fun. It was a fun role. David was really fun to work with. I think I really liked the episodes that I was involved with. From the first one where his body gets taken over. I mean, that's hysterical. Like he's back and forth. I mean, it's kind of campy, but what I like is it used his talents very well.
That's right.
It was nice to see that side of him as an actor. So that was kind of fun. And then the episode where his friend, doesn't make it, the doctor, right? And
Sunday. That's your second episode. Yeah.
yeah, that's very touching, very moving. And I to be part of that was, it was beautiful. And again, because I wasn't in the ending scene, it did give me um it made me realize too that maybe I wasn't that important to him, me personally, right?
Oh, to
Katie Brown.
Carson. Yeah.
To well to
To Rodney?
Rodney. That's
Oh.
Rodney didn't
Yeah,
go to
because
me.
yeah.
He didn't reach out to me for support or,
Yeah.
did it change him enough to bring him to Katie Brown? No, it didn't. He almost pushed him further away into his own self. Like, what did he really discover about himself through that? I'm not really sure. But
You think so? I don't know. I think that at the end of the day, people would argue that Carson was Rodney's best friend. I think that Rodney idolized Shepard, and I do think that scene probably with Katie happened. But later on, he gets her an engagement ring, for crying out loud, and that's after Carson's death. I
that's
really
after,
think
yeah.
that he had. I do think that Carson's death played a part in his moving to do that, because I do think there was a part of him that was like, life's too short. We're not guaranteed tomorrow. I got to try something, you know?
Yeah,
There's
but
this
it took
beautiful
time.
girl
Didn't
inside and
happen
out.
right
But yeah,
away.
well, it's Rodney.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to beat him over
I
the
think that's
head.
what I
But
meant, that in that particular
yeah,
episode,
for sure.
like he didn't know what to do. And then of course it evolved.
Yeah.
He absolutely evolved. I did see that.
Let's go back to Duet. Let's play with that for a minute.
Okay.
Because you're absolutely right. They're giving the cast things that they can chew on, that they're good at. They're not blindsiding anybody with anything that they can't. And I think that this dinner scene, Katie doesn't know what's going on. Rodney's still just figuring it out, trying to work through it himself. What was it like opposite that energy, that brain that can take in 50% of the dialogue for the entire script and just march it out of his mouth in order? And what was it like? What you think was going on in Katie's mind?
Yeah. Well, I think what's fun is that I don't think we knew each other that well.
Right.
So I think, Katie was trying to figure out, who is this guy? What's he about? She obviously had a huge crush on him. Like, she was crushing on him a lot, and then to invite him over, that's pretty bold. Um, and to have him walk in and his friend there, I mean, I think there was a lot of confusion and I don't really know what's going on. And then all of a sudden he's passionate, which I don't expect, but I go with because, hey, why not? Because I have a feeling that's kind of what I want, right? I think that's what Katie wants. She wants him to kiss her, and there he goes ahead. He acts differently than she expected. And I don't, I wonder, yeah, she does find out later why. Like,
Yeah.
she does find out later um what happened. So then she has to obviously think back and think, well, was that real? What was that?
Was that him
You
or was
know?
that her? It's a lot of
Yeah.
mixed feelings,
Yeah, it's confusing. It's confusing, but he's fabulous. I mean, he's such a strong actor to work with, in the sense that he just had it down. Actually, the whole crew, the set, all the actors, they came in prepared. We were never waiting. It was pretty smooth. Everyone was very professional. Um, it was really fun. Working with those two actors in the dinner scene, that was really fun. They were having a good time, which helped me too, because I was new on set.
brand new.
I didn't know a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I felt comfortable. It was really fun. Like, we had a good time.
We assume, when I have cast or crew who come on and say that people are professional, I think there's this sort of lip service that people are thinking of, laymen's who are not a part of this industry in the background, like everyone's professional, and it's not true. There are plenty who aren't, and there is I think, an elevation of, wow, they are really bringing it in this script. I'm going to just as much. If I wasn't already before, or if I felt that I was before, and they're even more in my estimation, I'm going to try all that much harder tonight for tomorrow. There's a certain, it's not one-upsmanship, but there's a certain rising to the occasion that occurs to people when they're confronted with good material or good actors and good crew. Would you agree?
Well, yeah, I think there's what I see is that we all want to do a really good job.
Mm,
And when you show up somewhere and people don't seem to care,
right.
then you show up the next day and it doesn't become about the work. It becomes about, well, the drama almost becomes like, okay, what's going to happen today? Or, am I going to be stuck in a room with people who are unhappy and miserable? And, there are people that show up on sets and they're just having a really bad day. And that just sets us all up for failure, honestly, because it's no fun. And it should be fun.
It should be. I think it translates
But
onto the screen. You can move through the material, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to resonate with the audience. You are communicating something through your eyeballs, and the
yeah.
stress between the takes often translates whether we want it or not.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's no fun then. And the crew, I mean, they're not enjoying themselves and other actors. And what's in a situation like this where everybody's working so hard and enjoying it. And I think the camaraderie was really positive. Yeah, they're like, what can we do to make the script better? What can we do to make my character more interesting? What can I do to help raise this as opposed to, oh, I'm just having a bad day and it's about me. I didn't see any of that.
Hmm.
It was super fun.
I'm trying to figure out how I want to approach this because this is, a 20-year-old program. I think that we as a I hate the word evolved. We as a society look at things differently now than we did. And I do want to acknowledge the fact that that this character was created largely to give to enhance Rodney's story. Um, was there ever an aspect of you being like, maybe I can branch off from Rodney, or did you really feel like, yeah, but this is the role, this is the part that's being played. Uh, her two-handers with him are designed to have us emotionally invest in him more, and I am there to support that role. How do you feel about that? I didn't think I was going to go anywhere near this, but I'm really enjoying this vibe, Brenda, and I really want to
Yeah,
ask.
honestly, I never saw it any other way
Okay.
than, hey, this Rodney, this helps Rodney, his character, right? I mean, it helps him figure out who he is. I mean, when he proposes and we realize that maybe this isn't right for either of us,
Yeah.
that helps him evolve.
Yeah.
Katie Brown is fine. I'm going to be fine. I'll
Yeah.
move, sure if I pop in another episode or something is created, the writers want to continue that, that's fine. But really I think it's about Rodney. I really see that. I did see that from the beginning. I did move to San Diego, which didn't help,
Oh,
as far
during
as
the show was still
character.
going?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, I bet that explains it because satellite characters were always coming back.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
I probably moved after the second episode. So
I see.
that might have even had an effect on the trajectory of the relationship,
I see.
perhaps, right? Because then all of a sudden I had to fly in as opposed to go, Brenda's down the street, come on in.
Right, we can write her in real quick to a scene because we're short on this episode. Okay, okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
but you had to
yeah.
do
It's funny.
you.
Yeah.
You know?
Hmm?
Yeah, it's absolutely how it works. Do you remember anything about Tabula Rasa? Everyone's brains were wiped.
Yes. That, wait, everyone's brains were wiped.
Tabula Rasa. Uh huh.
That's, that's, wait, is my brain wiped?
She was busy collecting plant samples from the mainland. Then she then shows him the cactus-like plant, which she wants to name after him. That's the Rodneyana villosa. That's the episode.
That's,
So
that's,
those that was
that's,
before. So you didn't. I'm trying to remember. Did you have any scenes after that? You may not have. I didn't rewatch the episode before we
well,
met. So I'm sorry.
quarantine, well, yeah, I want to make sure I have the order correct. Um, there's um,
You had Duet, and then you
there's
had
Duet,
Sunday. We lost Carson, and then
right?
three was Tabula Rasa, and evidently that has the Rodneyana villosa. I always thought it was in
No, I
quarantine.
think it's because quarantine. It's weird. It's kind of out of order.
Yeah,
Quarantine would have been before tabula rosa.
it was after because that's the episode where he proposes and then we don't see her again. So
Right?
you
Yeah,
may
yeah.
have shot
That's the
them out of
last part.
order, but yeah, for sure that
Yeah, that
quarantine
was
was
the
the
last.
yeah.
That was the last one. There's that episode where I'm in a coma the whole time. That's a different episode
Okay.
where I'm just in a coma the entire episode. It was great. I just like slept all day. I was like, they made me to lie in a bed all day. It was really
Oh gosh, yeah, the things that they pay us to do, right?
But the last episode, I really loved it because I was already in San Diego and I'd already made a decision to take a break. Um, I had What's funny in Vancouver is, and I loved it, but you, as a supporting actor, one day you're on, let's say, Stargate Atlantis, and the next day I was on Slither, and the next day I was working on Masters of Horror, and the next day they bring you back to Stargate Atlantis, and the next year you're doing another scene on Slither. And the funny thing is the directors and the producers don't realize that you're doing all these things at the same time. They kind of expect you to be available all the time, yet, a day here and a day there, it's just a day here and a day there. So when I was shooting Stargate Atlantis, I think it was Duet, I was working on Slither literally 3 blocks away. And so it was hysterical because I would be working, I was working with James Gunn, the fly pestering me. It's great. I was working with James Gunn and like Michael Rooker. I was
Wow.
playing this really like trashy Southern, trailer, fabulous role. And I was like, I turned into a monster, right? It's just this, and then I'd go to sleep and then I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh, okay, now I'm a botanist. Okay, here I am. I'm a botanist. And then I'd go to sleep and I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh, we were doing this today. And every day would be so different. It was super fun. But I had kids and I had to cut it off and raise my kids and I came to San Diego. So, well, what I loved about this episode was I had to fly back in to shoot it.
Mhm.
And I had left Vancouver and I loved Vancouver. So it was hard um because it kind of was like part of me leaving, part of me. If that makes sense. For me, right? It wasn't so much about the show or Rodney or even Katie Brown. But for me, it was really cool because they're like, you know what, come back, let's come back to Vancouver. And I got to spend a good week up there. I brought my daughter with me and we shot these scenes and I got to say goodbye, a bit to that part of my life.
Can I
So
ask?
for me,
Go ahead, finish your thought.
no, so for me personally, it had a lot of meaning as well.
Can I
So
ask a personal question?
sure.
Did when you came back, did any part of you go, what if I made a mistake?
No,
Good.
no, no, not at all. No. I needed to move. I needed to be with my family. I needed to be a more involved mother.
Hmm.
Um, I needed to get back to California. It was just the way my life was set up.
Hmm.
And it's been great. I have no regrets. No, not at all. It was just a sweet time.
One of the things that uh, I try to do through Dial the Gate is to show people others who are brave and take actions for their lives and for their careers that you may not normally consider. I come from a town of 6,000 people, which is now 5,000. It's a dying little town. And people always ask me about, they're always complaining about the town and on Facebook and everything else. And it's like, I write back and I say, move. And there's no response. They won't. They won't do it. They're terrified because their whole world is there.
Yeah.
It's important for us to be able to say to ourselves or ask ourselves, am I making this decision because I don't want to make a change, or am I making the decision because I'm not being brave enough? And to be willing to completely change your circumstances and leave the country for another country like you did, and then be willing to come back even though you've had success there, but clearing your resolve that this is the decision that needs to be made, because in your case you've got 2 children that you want to spend more time with and that you want to see more family. I think it's important to remind people that yes, you can make tough calls and go in places where you're not sure of the outcome, because ultimately there is a safety net there. You're not going to be destitute in your decision.
Yeah, I think somehow our expectations, right? What we expect our lives to be, especially if you're an actor, right? I think people think that what does success look like,
Right.
right? So if I haven't reached this or if I haven't reached that, am I successful? I'm like, absolutely. Like I don't know what your gauge of success is, but I've worked with fabulous people. I've worked on great roles. I have traveled. I support myself. I raise my kids. I love my life. I'm happy and I can teach and I can still work. To me, that's success. I think that's fabulous. I couldn't see it any other way. But I think sometimes people get stuck in an idea of what things are supposed to be, you know? And the world, there's beautiful places in the world. There's different cities, there's different people. If you're stuck and you're unhappy, you know, you only really are on this earth, at this time.
A blink.
You know, why not make a difference for yourself? Because if you do something for yourself, it's going to translate, and then other people will be inspired by that as well. And that's just, it's like connecting or energy from one to the next, it grows. And maybe then we won't have these missing generations. We will help each other. We will share. We can help the kids today kind of look at the world and not be so afraid, and see that there's good choices out there. You don't have to stick to one certain path one way.
You
it's
don't
it's
have to
not easy.
accept everything, but you should listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you should pay attention to other people,
Hmm.
connect to other people, people have a lot of good things to say, and people do care. And most people care. I
Hmm.
really believe that.
I think we put up a facade where we want to project something, but when people are honest with us and vulnerable, unless we're psychopaths, I think it disarms us. Often, I find that with myself, where it's like, you know what? Now let me share something vulnerable about myself, But also when I'm doing that, I really am considering more of what they have to say because they've opened up,
Yeah.
And I think we don't want to, especially now, and look at online, where everyone's like, don't show weakness. You don't like
Right.
that. You need to let them know how bad they are. It's like, yeah, but I like that person for these reasons too, and those things still matter.
Yeah. When I started my first day of teaching, I was terrified. I was
Well,
like, oh my
sure,
God. And I'm like, okay, what do I thought, okay, I gotta be a certain type, right?
they're going to eat me otherwise.
Yeah, I gotta walk in there and I have to wear sunglasses. Like, what am I gonna do? I have to have I think about the teachers I had, and they were scary, some of them. I'm like, I gotta go in there, and like, what do I wear? I was getting really nervous. And I asked one of the instructors there, Dig Wayne, and I substitute for him. And he said, Brenda, just be yourself. Just be yourself. And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you got the passion. You know what you're talking about. You have the history. Just be yourself. And I'm so grateful he said that, because it really set me up well. Because I was thinking, do I have to create a persona? I mean, no, no, I don't need to create a persona. It's just me.
Talk about acting. You come to the end of the semester, yeah, that person you were all talking to, that's just me just figuring things out for a role I'm doing. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
I actually
yeah,
talk like this.
yeah. That's just who I am today. You know?
I don't know if you could do that job without being yourself to a certain degree all the time. Otherwise, because you're translating your inner thoughts and behaviors of how to interpret a role, I think otherwise people would look at you and be like, she's fake. What she's
Yeah,
saying isn't working for me. There's something that doesn't ring true about it. Now, if I'm going to tell you how to run a cash register, you could probably pull that off. But in your case, you're asking people to be vulnerable in ways
yeah,
that, and you're hopefully encouraging them to think in ways that they haven't before about interpreting a role. Started hearing about people like running Italians. Is that what it's called? Just in terms of just taking your dialogue and just stripping all of the emotion out and just running the lines and running the lines and running the lines. And I kept on hearing people running Italians. What are they talking about? And the more I learned about that, I was like, it wasn't what are they talking about, but it's like, what could possibly benefit from this? And the more I thought about it, the more it's like, this is a great way of absorbing dialogue.
hmm,
You can color it later. And it's something that I hadn't considered before in terms of approaching, something that I have to read in front of a group of people or anything else, you know?
No, it's a fabulous approach,
Yeah.
because you're not presetting it. You're not using your ideas to determine how it should sound,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it gives you the ability to just, like, it's almost like music, right? You
Mm-hmm.
have it, and then you can kind of run around it, and you can mess underneath it, you can go on top of it, you can try different accents, you can have different intentions, you can make different choices. Yeah, it gives you a lot of flexibility if you just like get that down.
I have a few fan questions for you. I'd like to begin to work in here, if that's okay.
Okay.
Gate
Sure.
Gabber, Brenda, can anyone sign up for a class at the Strasberg Institute, or do you have to be a member? How does that work? I know this person actually, and they have aspirations. So
Well, the Strasberg Institute, it's been around, I don't even know how long. It's been over 50 years, I would think, maybe longer. There's one in New York, there's one in Los Angeles. I do know they have different programs. So I believe you can sign up for just classes. Like if you just want to take, 2 classes a week, I believe you can do that. But they do have programs for, 1 year. Well, I think that goes by semesters. So there's 4 semesters. So you can take, 2 semesters, 3 semesters, 4 semesters. They have different instructors. What I love about what the Strasberg Institute is doing is, yes, of course, there's the methodology of the technique, relaxation and sensory exercises, but they're realizing that the world is changing, and so
yeah,
there's voice and movement and on camera, and they even have a self-tape room. So if any of the students, need a self-tape for an audition, they have coaching, and it's a beautiful space with different theaters and creative people. Um, Reach out, and find out exactly how to get involved in the classes. They have a lab class once a month that I think anyone can participate in, and that gives you a good idea, of what the place is about. You could just show up for one class. You're allowed to audit. You can say, hey, I want to audit a class, and you can go in and check it out,
go and sit
which
in.
is great. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. At the very least, you could go, you know what? This isn't what I thought it was, but I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. You can check in and you just walk through those halls. It's
Yeah.
fabulous.
Wow. Matt TQ wants to know, Brenda, as best as you can remember, what did you think of the chemistry? When they got into their like at the beginning of quarantine, their rhythm together. Were you playing it expecting them to be a permanent item, or did you play it like they were a mismatch? That's a great question.
It's a great question because I think I've wondered that myself, honestly. I think it's a great question. I always played Katie like Katie really, really, really loved Rod.
Yeah.
Like really loved him and really wanted the best for him from her, like what she knew of him.
So
But
she
he
was going to
didn't
make it
share it.
work, but he didn't share it.
No, I don't think she really knew who he was. And I think at the end she did see who he was. And I think that was the first time that Katie was realized that, wait, maybe he's not what I thought he was, you know? So from Katie's perspective, he's talented, he's in charge, he's strong, he's handsome, he's got a sense of humor, all these things that I saw, I realized, yeah, well, that could be something, but I don't think that Katie was necessarily ready for like a long-term, full on like marriage relationship. I think, her greenhouse was just fine. Her little bubble was just fine.
Her house
And
was in order, even though it
her
was a
house was in
greenhouse.
order. Yeah. And as much as I think she wanted to take care of him, but I think she realized that no, it's too much. She's just too much. No, it's just too much.
So let's go there.
Yeah.
Rodney pops the ring,
Well,
or
it fell out.
pops the question, I should say. He
Yeah.
gives her, let's just say he gives her the ring. What does she say? What do you think she would have said?
If he had actually
Proposed.
proposed at that time, I think she might have said yes.
Yeah. But
You
do you think
know?
she would have ultimately found it to be the right decision overall? Because I can tell you by the last season, he's learned from his mistakes of being so self-centered and is put in a similar crisis situation with Jewel State, whom his character, the two characters have been dating, and he doesn't behave that way. So this was a growing episode for him. But do you think at that point, were she to see that behavior later, the quarantine behavior later, she would have been like, boy, did I make a mistake?
I
You
think
think?
so, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think so. I don't think this is what Katie wanted. I don't think that's what she was hoping for. So, also I think she learned a lot about herself too.
Yeah.
How do you really get to know someone if you're not involved? If you're not involved in what they're going through every day. I mean, when you look at the dialogue, like she didn't really even know the protocols. Like she didn't really understand the protocols of what was going on. Who's really in charge? How much is he involved in everything? In a sense, she was kind of isolated from all of that. So I think also I would see Katie learning from that. Like, wait a minute, whoa, like I don't know what's going on out there, and it could have easily made me, um, Katie, like curl up more, like back
Mhm.
into the greenhouse and go, you know what, this is too much for me. Or maybe the opposite, like I need to get out and meet people. Like I need to get out there and get to know people. And hopefully that's what she got from it.
Do you think that she got out and met people on Earth after that? After quarantine, do you think she returned to the Milky Way galaxy, or do you think that she was still around there, or do you think she closed that door on Rodney and on Pegasus?
It's possible. I think that she had a big mission though. I mean, I think she was trying to cure diseases and she was connected to plants and greenery and I think that's her life.
Mm.
I think being around trees, and whether that's going back to Earth
Yeah.
or not, um, I think she had a bigger purpose. I think she had a bigger purpose. And maybe she did find a cure for something. And maybe she was part of a team that was able to help,
Mm.
help somebody,
Oh, I
that
certainly
needs
don't
it.
think she left the program, but she could have done the same thing with the IOA on Earth. So,
Yeah.
oh. Lock
Yeah.
Lockwatcher wanted to know, compared with other work that you have done, how was it like working on what? How was it working on Slither with a Stargate alum, by the way, Michael Rooker? Were any of those days tough days?
Well, yeah, that
Yeah.
was that was a that was intense. That was such a different kind of environment. Like Stargate, everything was very, the sets were built, right? You're walking on sets that have been there. The lighting's already there. The crews have been working together for a long time. Um, Slither was extraordinary in the sense that you didn't know where you were going to be the next day. You didn't, all of a sudden I was in the woods in the middle of the night with these, great lines, great words. James Gunn always had like music playing, and Michael Rooker was like, he was always bouncing off the walls. Like I didn't know what he was going to do next. There was a lot less security um,
Hmm.
on Slither. And obviously, I was in prosthetics for a lot of it. So
Hmm.
there were times where I was stuck on set. Um, the one scene where I'm in prosthetics and I play the Brenda Blob. I was on set almost an entire day and I couldn't leave my prosthetics. And and it was hard. It was hard. It was really hard work physically, but everyone was still very supportive. I remember Nathan Fillion, he came over to me
Mm.
during like a lunch break, and I'm just sitting there with my face stuck in this big, big puppet. Nathan Fillion, like he almost feels bad for me. I feel bad for him. He like pulls this chair over and he's like looking around. He's in a sheriff costume. He pulls this chair over. He sits down in front of me and he's like, how you doing in there? Are you hungry? I'm just like, yeah, okay, Nathan, thank you so much. I appreciate the conversation.
How am I doing? How do you think I'm doing, Nathan? Get me the hell out of here. Don't screw up your lines. I'm going to come and kill you. Jeez. Tell me about James Gunn.
Oh, wow. I was so excited to audition for this part. I I remember they said they couldn't find the character. They couldn't her name's Brenda. They
Oh,
said they
this is
couldn't find her.
coincidence.
It's just coincidence again, right? So they couldn't find Brenda. And I auditioned and
Here comes Brenda.
I fell in love and I went and I was reading for him. He was there at the casting, which was great. And I had that thing down. I was like, no, this is my role. I know this woman. I want to do this part. This is fun. And it was fun. It was so fun, but it was very different than Stargate. It was just, well, it's film, right? So your movie, your sets, your locations are changing. Um, James Gunn, he uh he had such a strong vision. Like he knew exactly what he wanted. Um, he, I didn't always know what it was that he wanted.
Hmm.
Um, he didn't always necessarily share it, but you just go along with it. You just
Hmm.
do what he says. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, sure, okay, fine, yeah, okay, yeah. You want, okay, sure, I'll do whatever you want because he had a very, very, very specific point of view. Obviously, I mean, he's done very well. Obviously,
Something's working.
he's working. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I think he owns the universe or something. Doesn't he own the universe?
Basically, yeah. He has his pick of the litter very frequently.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for a director who trusts his instincts from the hiring phase to let actors figure things out for themselves. I've heard stories since doing this of a director telling an actor, do this to them, and not telling the other actor so that we can film the reaction. And like little things like that, not like psychological mind games from one performer to another, but anything to get the take,
Mhm.
and just be willing to walk through a minefield, trusting that the person who has your back knows the coordinates of all the mines. They're putting you in this thing, and you look like a freak, you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
whatever it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely. And I did feel like he played like Michael Rooker and I a little bit. Like he was always like, he was kind of like always egging him on, like, hey, what do you, yeah, hey, Michael, like you guys should just, why don't you guys go play cards? Or he was always kind of like, I always felt like he was kind of like, teasing us and um yeah, I always felt like he had this kind of, I don't know, you're right. There was something there where I think James Gunn was constantly like, hey, they were really good friends too,
Yes,
him and Michael,
yeah, they're
right?
always
They
he's always casting
really,
him. Something. When you have don't break something, don't fix something that isn't broken. I always get it wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's great. I mean, they have a great relationship apparently, and he knew. I mean, he knew they just trusted each other very
Hmm.
well. There's a lot of trust. Absolutely, a lot of trust. I mean, yeah, if you're gonna paint yourself blue, you gotta really love the trust. Trust the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I look like a freak. Yeah, but you're a
Yeah, I
lovable
know. And I
freak.
like a big bed, like, blowing up and, the size of a barn. You gotta trust.
A couple more for you. Jacob wanted to know any memory of working with either Brad Pitt or Roddy McDowell on Cutting Class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it was really fun. So Brad Pitt, he was just starting out. I think this was
Yeah.
his first movie. And it's
Wow.
interesting because he was actually very insecure.
Yeah.
He had dropped out of college, I believe, and he kind of like, I'm going to California, I'm going to become a star, which he did. And he was very insecure. And he had a lot of energy. And I'd been doing this a long time. So I was an LA girl. I'd been acting, right, for a while. So he had this like kind of, I don't know, small town kind of energy, which was really fun to watch. And I was there the day that uh, he ran up to some cars and like mooned them. They were like cars driving and like him and I don't know who it was, but they like ran up to the street and then they mooned the cars and I think they actually got a ticket. Like,
Yeah. Public indecency.
yeah, that's the kind of
Wow.
stuff he was doing. He was just really kind of silly, a little insecure,
Yeah.
charming, of course. And Rodney McDowell, I mean, what an icon. I was just so grateful to be in the same room with him. Um, I'm sure he was just doing it for a paycheck, and that's great.
There are
Good,
those
good,
roles.
take it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I loved. Yeah, I've been really lucky. I've worked with some fabulous people over the years.
Wow. Yeah. I never want to. They say don't meet your heroes, but if you ever come across someone who you idolize, it's like, oh please. It's in a professional role where you can't escape. It's like, please God, don't let them be a monster.
Yeah,
So
well, I'll tell you two stories.
okay.
So one of my first jobs was Harrison Ford. I worked with Harrison Ford. One of my very first jobs. It was on Patriot Games. It was a small part. I play the redhead in the bathroom, right? I have a ponytail and like the red hair. But I was a huge fan. And I like Raiders of the Lost Ark. I saw it at the Chinese theater. I saw it like 100 times. So, and I don't get starstruck. I really don't. But I did. I was just, I couldn't even speak. And he came to set and he would just mess with me. And like, he'd like, where's Brenda? Where'd she go? Where is she? And I'd be like hiding in the
He's
corner, like, oh
leaning
my
into
God,
it.
oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I can't stand it. And then, so I've always had really good experiences,
Yeah.
I never thought, I don't know, it just was fun. I've always enjoyed it. I did have trouble with one actor, and I'll share. I worked with Ben Affleck. It was one of my last jobs in Vancouver. I was playing a judge, and I was pretty excited. I think that's pretty cool. But when he worked with me, when he did his scenes with me, he would never look at my eyes. He looked at my forehead the whole time. So he'd be doing a scene with me and he'd be looking, he would never look at me. He looked at my forehead. And I'm like, come on. Like, really? You really want to look at my forehead? Fine. But it's
Interesting
just like,
choices.
fine. You don't want to connect? Fine. It's okay with me. But, I don't like you anymore. Sorry.
Yeah, the choices that artists make sometimes, it's like, well, he's going there. I don't get it, but if it helps the performance, whatever, man. But it doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to buy a ticket to your next film. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
There have been
Yeah.
out of the hundreds of Stargate cast, there have only been one or two that are like, I heard stories, and those stories are confirmed, but they're not for the audience. This the everything is amazing. These are daytime families, and daytime families have weird family members, and they're there to
Oh,
fulfill
yeah.
a job. And sometimes they make so much that you can't necessarily get rid of them, but
Yep.
you get through it however way you can. So
Yeah, but they're still characters.
that's
Like they're
right. That's
characters. And that's
right.
what's so fabulous about them. And Michael Rooker is a character. He's fabulous. He might be a loose cannon, right? James Gunn. I mean, what a fabulous, these are great characters. These are fabulous people. They're creative. You know, that's good or bad, whether you want to have a beer with them or not, that's a totally different story. But I run into a lot of fabulous characters, and sometimes they have a bad day.
That's the thing. We're all allowed bad days, except for cops and like caregivers. There's this limited list. But yeah, you're right. And that's what you always try to remember is, in time encountering people, it's like maybe this was an off one. So you never know. Marcia Middleton, last question for you. Apparently, Steven Spielberg's new film, temporarily titled Disclosure, looks to be about visitations. Do you have any memories from his project Taken? I have
Right.
not
Yeah.
seen this.
This is quite a while ago.
Yeah, I'm taking you
And
back.
I played a teacher. It's funny, I played a teacher. And oh, what's his name? Oh, it's sad that passed away. Yeltsin, the actor was
Oh,
in it.
Anton Yelkin?
Yeah, yeah,
Anton?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He was
You
in
must have been a
it, and
kid.
yeah. Oh, he was a kid. There were children in it.
Okay.
Okay. I really loved working on this project. I remember it. It was in a really cool little schoolhouse. I think it was in Canada, North Vancouver somewhere. What I do remember is I had to drive stick shift, and I'd never driven stick shift.
I'm not good either. Oh, it's a mess.
Don't you love that? You
Oh
get to
God,
set, they're
there's
like,
heavy
it was like a
traffic.
station, it was like a station wagon too.
Oh,
And they're like, okay, Brenda, drive. And I think the kids are in the car with me. And I, I'm like, how? I
did
think
no
they had
one
to push
explain
me.
this?
They had to push. I think they pushed the car for me. That was one of my good days. But I remember that project. That was I remember seeing it. I loved that project. I mean, my character wasn't in the whole thing at
Mhm,
all. So I remember watching it. It was fascinating about extraterrestrials and
mhm.
what happened and the hidden secrets and yeah. Actually, I'm surprised that that's not out more, that
Mm.
people haven't seen it more.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Can't
have to go
remember
and
what
check
year
it
it
out.
was.
How often do you
Yeah.
watch something that you've been in? Generally or not so generally?
Actually, not so
Yeah.
generally, but it's fun having kids because my kids are like, yeah, you gotta watch. Hey, come on, mom, let's watch this together. And I had a friend that just became a huge fan, and she's like, "You're coming over, and we're watching Slither." I'm like, "No, yeah, you're coming over." So now we have like Slither parties, and it's absolutely like it's like what else? So they start Googling, right? And they're like, "Oh my God, you did! Oh, let's watch that." And then they find it, and we start watching it, and it becomes like Brenda night. Like we did um, oh my God. It's funny. I've like done such wacky things. Like the MTV show
Yeah.
together about the boy band and stuff, which is another Gunn. I think the James Gunn's brother and cousin produced and wrote that. And it's so different but campy and fun, comedic. And like we did like an MTV together night and so now I'm enjoying it more. I'm trying to think of what else they like to watch. We did cutting class night. Oh, let's watch cutting class, a great 80s, like, scream slasher movie. And yeah, no, it's been fun.
I will. You've probably heard this before, but I will say this: always be thankful that you have children who are interested in watching your stuff. We've had Rachel Luttrell. We've had her on a few times, and Caden's like could care less. I mean, he's just like, I really don't care. He likes more intense stuff like horror and things like that, and we'll pull her into that. But in terms of her stuff, he's like, eh, And it's like this is your paycheck, but this is also your body of work. That's what
Yeah.
it is. And the fact that you have children that connect with any of it really is a blessing. So
Oh, it's
that's really
fabulous.
cool.
My daughter, because she's at Boston University, and
Ah,
last year during Halloween, Slither was playing at the cult theater down the street. She's like, "Mom," and she brought a bunch of her friends. We're gonna go watch Slither at the theater tonight.
ah,
I'm like, oh, that's really fun. And I think next year's the 20-year anniversary too, which will be fun.
wow. I wouldn't be
Yeah,
surprised if you get a call for some publicity for that. I remember though when that film came out, that was a big deal. So that's really cool.
yeah. And I've never done convention work. I haven't been out there, and so now that I'm back and my kids are older, I'm gonna
Yeah.
try and get out there and talk to people and. You know,
It has a cult following. I would do it. Do one or two. See what happens.
see what it's like.
So yeah. Brenda, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking so much of your time to sit down and share so many stories from the various productions that you've been in. I always loved Katie. I really wish that we had seen her again. This explains some of that, I think, because, like I said, they were really good at bringing characters back, and that quells some of that. You were missed in the
Thank
rest of the show. Let me
you.
just put it that way. So, but it meant a lot to have you.
Thank you. Well, I really appreciate that you reached out. Now that I'm back in the world of acting and teaching, hopefully I'll have some more projects and yeah, I can check those out too. And yeah, I'm excited.
I think that, and I hope that one of the things that you're going to find is, when you participate in shaping hearts and minds, especially hearts and minds in your industry, those minds have a way of not forgetting the people who have helped them the most, and some of that turns into work. So,
Yeah, I believe that. I
yeah.
absolutely believe that. And just being part of it, just being any part of it is exciting to me and it's creative. Yeah, I know it's a rough time for the industry right now. I
Uh,
know it's a rough time for LA right now. But I have this glimmer of hope that there's a huge amount of fabulously creative people out there, young creative people. And they want outlets and they do want to connect and they do want to tell stories and they love characters and people of all ages. So I think it's gonna have to change again. It's gonna change. I don't know what it's gonna look like, but
Nothing but change. That is the one certainty. And I think that AI is going to. I'm beginning to see a lot more and more of young people who are beginning to push up against it. Not many, but are push up against it and resist letting it take over every aspect of them, And what I really think you're going to see is this pendulum swing of people craving real more, craving theater,
Yeah.
in personal in your face experiences that this is no way a simulation, and I do think
Yeah,
that that's going to
connection
continue.
again.
That connection, absolutely, 100%. So I think you're in the perfect spot. So, and I wish
Well,
you all
thank
the
you so
best.
much. Thank you for reaching out. I really appreciate it. It's been great meeting you. I hope to meet you in person sometime.
I'm in San Diego for Comic-Con pretty much every year. I'm in LA next week to see a couple of friends. But point is, I'm in LA all the time. So
Oh,
we may
great.
very
Well,
well cross
I hope
paths.
to talk in person sometime. It'd be really fun.
Absolutely, have a connection ourselves. I'm going to wrap up the show on this side. Thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Thank you too.
Bye bye. That
Bye.
was Brenda James, everyone. Katie Brown in Stargate Atlantis. My name is David Reed for Dial the Gate, the Stargate Oral History Project. I really appreciate you tuning in. We have a couple more shows that are heading your way tomorrow. And I never have this pulled up when I need it. Never do. God forbid. So William DeVry, who played Aldwin in Stargate SG-1, he's joining us tomorrow, May the 11th. Craig Veroni has actually been moved to Saturday, May the 17th. He realized that it was Mother's Day, and so his mother's more important than us, apparently. So, all right, do his thing. But we're going to have him next week. So I appreciate you being with us for this episode. If you enjoy Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, click that like button. It does make a difference with the show and will continue to help us grow. And please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get notified about future episodes, click subscribe. My tremendous thanks to my producers, Anthony, Kevin, and Linda, my moderating team. My stalwart warriors, Anthony, Jeremy, Kevin, Lockwatcher, Marcia, Raj. Big thanks to Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web, keeping dialthegate.com up and running. Hopefully, in the next couple of months here, we're going to have a new rollout for you. Let's keep our fingers crossed. We've got more shows coming down the pike for you the rest of this season. Really appreciate you being out there and watching. And we'll see you on the other side.